was that it's all students who have a Master's of Business Administration program, because the MBA program had moved to that type of model. And so, at that point, it became really interesting because it sort of not only defined our scope, but it taught us a lot about the curriculum management and the foundational structure that we needed within our curriculum to even support a digital record like this. When it comes down to it, a CLR is really all about the data that transfers from your institution into a digital record so that it can be sort of interpreted by others who you want to share it with. And so we had a lot of work to do around kind of, understanding the work that flows in from our learning management system into our data warehouse and how we were going to render that into our CLR. So I think kind of, it's a huge learning process, but since we were doing everything from a classroom, it really did sort of lend itself to, not only defining our scope, but just figuring out like, what can we do? Where can we start?
I love that point. And I love that as an assessment person, I think it's really important in the CLR work that we start thinking about the process flow of where does our learning data go? We're really good at having an understanding of where certain types of data on our students live and how they move and how they flow. But that piece about do we have these in ways that our competencies are real and meaningful? Do our learning outcomes really reflect our educational design? And where does that data live and where does it go? Are huge parts to think about where do we choose to engage? What does readiness mean? And how do we help get to those sort of quick proof points to get moving in that direction? So thank you so much for sharing that perspective. Lori, I would love to turn to you next to share about how your institution's CLR focuses on learning outcomes and goes through that process.
Okay, well, thank you. And can you see this slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so great. So I'm a visual learner, so I figured I'll talk and show at the same time. So Lori Dodge, I'm Vice Provost, Vice Chancellor at Brandman University, which is a private not-for-profit institution serving adult students. So we started our comprehensive learner record a while ago, and we were part of that first group, learning and sharing as we went along. And we built our CLR around our competency-based education program. So we have 4 direct assessment programs, 3 undergraduate, 1 graduate program. So the 3 pieces that you see here are really the infrastructure for our digital CLR. The first is university verified, and it's fed by our student information system, or banner, which has your typical things that you would expect: degrees, academic majors, GPA. It also lists your competencies, your courses. We do have a badging constellation that is around our institutional learning outcomes that align with the DQP and university certification. So that's one piece. The second piece is also university verified, but it's students submit pieces like some type of internship or organization that they're part of, or membership. And so the university will verify that, and that's uploaded. The third is the unverified piece that students can build on their own. And that may include portfolio, some type of work citations, volunteer activities, awards, resumes. So there's those 3 pieces. So that was the infrastructure that we built. It's all based around the competencies with metadata behind that.
Thank you so much, Lori, and thank you as well for the visual. As Tom has said frequently and often, getting that visual up is so helpful for people to try to understand that shift that's unfolding. What I particularly like about the 3 categories within Brandman's is that when you think about moving a record, if it's about learning, the positionality of a student in relation to it becomes different. And my ability as a student to have ownership over that and put forward things is opened in a way that when it's about institutions documenting, that relationship is not the same. So I really appreciate thinking through how do we allow space for different types of verification in different ways, and for the student to really own it with that flexibility to add additional elements. And so thank you so much for sharing that as we go along. Darren, I would like to turn to you to share how your institution, CLR, is going about this process.
Thank you. I'm Darren Hobbs, the Director of Academic Records and Credentials at Western Governors. And we are using the Open Badges standard, quite frankly, to represent the assertions that we make on behalf of our students' learning. We're, of course, a competency-based university and have been from our inception. At this point, however, we have developed and we've undertaken to denominate all of the competencies that our students are assessed upon as a part of a program offering. We've denominated those with skills that have been contextualized into what's called a rich skills description schema. And we've included that information as well as how those skills statements relate to frameworks, ONET, BLS, etc. All of which gets wrapped up in a nice package within the metadata of the Open Badges standard to represent the achievements of our students as we make those assertions on their behalf. We are doing that not only to communicate that our learners actually possess these competencies and skills and that they've been assessed upon them, but also, and just as importantly, to be able to surface back to our learners some market data and intelligence around how those skills translate to the workforce, the types of salaries and job roles that are related to the acquisition of these skills and competencies, to basically empower them to make choices about the pathways that they pursue.
Wonderful.
I do have some slides, but I'm using them as a part of the breakout session. So if anyone wants to see what some of this looks like, just come tomorrow if you didn't come today.
That's an excellent plug. Also, if you are not aware, Darren, congratulations for winning the Best Hat of the Day award. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
What I particularly like about the lens that Darren brings to this conversation is really helping to think about the intersection that the comprehensive learner record sits with all of the other frameworks that are out there, and how we think about that portability, that interoperability, and as well as that translation to understand how we're thinking about it within our context of what learning outcomes look like and mean to us, mean externally in the terms of skills, contextually, meaningful skills. So can I do what I did here is just over there in this other setting, and really start to make that translation point move. So thank you so much to all of them. I would love to move on to our next question. At the morning panel, there was a conversation around that there's benefits to students in this. This is great for institutions, but there's really a nice opportunity here for our students. So I want to have a moment to just focus in on what are the benefits to students of focusing on competencies and learning outcomes. And Lori, I'd like to start with you.
So thank you. I think there's three main advantages, and I think you probably heard some of that in the panel presentation this morning and also in the breakouts. The first, I think, is that students can show evidence of learning along their educational journey. So you don't have to say, hey, employer, I'll let you know as soon as I have my degree. 3 years from now, I'll get back to you. Instead, you can say, look, I can show evidence of student learning in real time as they're, going through that journey. The second is with the badging constellation, they can also upload those badges that have that metadata behind it on other social network sites like LinkedIn or other pieces when you're looking for jobs and or going for promotion. So I think that's another piece that allows the student to have control over pieces and customize their skill set with what the job is looking for. So I think that's a second. And the third is that they can customize all pieces of that. So instead of having a general resume when you're applying for a job and say it's IT, you can actually show those specific pieces better for the employer to look at and for the student to showcase.
No, thank you so much, Lori. And I love that ability to target relevant information to particular audiences. I think is really key. I also really appreciate the making learning visible elements of this, and that even if you don't, it's not credential or bust. If you don't sort of get to that end, if you have to stop out, you can still see value in it. So thank you so much for that insight. Insia, would you like to add some thoughts on benefits to students?
Sure. So, kind of looking at this strictly from an adult student perspective, when you break down sort of, who an adult student is, it's one that, is doing a balancing act every day, right? They've got multiple competing priorities, but they also come to you with, very relatable experience, and they come with a very direct reason why they're coming back to school, right? For many, it's, I just need that piece of paper. It's, I need that promotion, and I need to be able to do X, Y, and Z in order to do that. And so sometimes when you're thinking about it from that perspective, a degree program isn't even necessarily what they need or want. They really just need those skills that are going to get them to that next goal that they're looking to earn. And so, as Lori mentioned, a comprehensive student learner record gives them that ability to sort of highlight their skills along their way to that degree. So, they can sort of take what they've done in that course and say, hey, I actually just learned how to do this. You need me to do this on the job? Well, let me show you. I just did this. So, and I think that's just really powerful. I don't know if, I think something that I really just want to point out here is I'm not sure that students necessarily know how to do that when they see that on the CLR. I think that's part of something that us as institutions are going to have to craft and help them sort of figure out along the way. But I think, just being able to articulate those skills, again, sitting down and writing your resume is always sometimes like a very frustrating thing, especially if you're like me and you don't keep up with it and you come back to it every couple of years. So they can actually pull direct words off of the CLR to use right into their resume, right? And so it not only serves as a nice reminder of everything that you've done, but you can use that direct language right into your document. And if as a school, when you're developing your CLR, if you keep in mind that you need to use language in your learning outcomes that also speaks to employers and is not just internal speak, right, in terms of what you do, then it's just kind of a natural fit, and again helps them articulate those skills so much better than they could without it.
Yes, to all of that. I think that connection to life goals is really key to how what I'm doing help advance the things that I want to do as a student. That real-time application that, yes, we need to teach our students of that awareness and what can you do now that you know. But I also like the benefit to employers that's implicit within that, where if I'm a student who is not self-selecting out of a talent pool because I do not think I have the skills, because I was not thinking about that experience or that demonstration in that way, and you've given me language to say, you have this skill, these are things you can do, you should be part of this collection and group, I can actually find a source of talent or a talent pool as an employer that I might not have before. So yes to all of that. Darren, love to add your thoughts to this conversation.
So I have to echo what my colleagues said. It's really about empowering learners to understand, communicate, and assert their unique skills and talent brand in a constantly changing marketplace of opportunity. That's what I love about this new direction of records. I also think it's important to provide them the insights as to where the market is shifting. And this allows us to do that. One of the things that I will say that I accomplished my personal and professional goal is when a learner can see as they start to make their achievements, accrue their skills, that the pathway of opportunity ahead of them, not just academic pathways of opportunity, but employment pathways of opportunity, starts to unfold in front of them, and it lifts that veil of limited knowledge to my friends, my family, my local community, that there's opportunities well beyond the horizon goes forever. That's the dream that we're chasing. I want learners to understand the richness of the talent that they possess, the value of the skills that they possess, and the almost limitless capacity that they have as skilled, talented individuals.
Well, amen to that, Darren. And while you're on this beautiful speech of benefits, I would love to hear your thoughts on benefits to faculty and those that are helping students and lifting them up along the learning journey path.
Sure. So part of what we've discovered in our participation in the various learning and employment record pilots, at least in one of them, is that the intelligence that we can deliver to students about what the market is communicating, we can also deliver to our faculty. And this allows the faculty to see the relevancy of the material, the relevancy of the competencies that our program design and development teams are creating. They can be guided by market data. They can adjust and adapt to market data. And in one of our demo pieces, if you will, we tell a story of a learner, Maria, that just earned an achievement at Western Governors. And although she had set her academic goal to be A, now academic goals B and C popped up, and related employment, for which some other collateral that she brought in better aligns to. And had she thought about this, her program faculty was notified of that intelligence at the same time in order to engage in a rich conversation around, let's talk about your future. What do you want to be when you grow up? Have you considered this? I believe that's the benefit to faculty.
No, I think those conversations around learning are beautiful things to have in any setting. Lori, I'd love to invite you to add any comments that you might have on benefits for faculty, but also add benefits for employers to the mix.
Sure. So I'll start with employers, and you've been hearing that a lot about employers looking for something other than a traditional transcript, where you went, what your degree was, and your GPA and courses and grades. So I go back to the very beginning of the CLR work, thinking, teaching and learning has changed significantly in higher ed, but the transcript looks like when I went to school. So it doesn't, so I think, that record has to change and is changing. So, but for employers, it's not just the customized piece that I talked about. So you can customize with CLR, like whether it's IT, communication, public relations, showcase those through your CLR. But it's also, I think, an important piece of this is when you're building your CLR and you're building your competencies, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but your employers are around the table in the beginning. You can't assume what employers want and need without having them help build that. So you're going to get buy-in from employers at the end of the game if you have them in the beginning. And so for those just starting out, I strongly urge to say, yeah, so if we have a student, Darren, like you said, if they have a specific skill and we have a student going through the BBA program, they're going to showcase their business plan. Look, I have a business plan. I want to show you what I have here because I know you're looking for that in the job. For faculty, because competency is outcome-based, I think that the benefit with the CLR is really showing the depth and breadth of student learning and evidence of that learning in digital format. So I think it really continues to hone in the teaching and learning towards those outcomes.
Wonderful, love it. And I think having more nuanced information around learning can really help faculty members as they're thinking through, what do I need to change to get our students in ways to advance towards that learning. And Sia, I'd love to invite you to comment on faculty and employer benefits, but particularly add to it the mix of graduate schools and what the benefits might be for those.
So I think it comes back, the value of a CLR to graduate education comes back to the reasons why somebody is pursuing a graduate degree, right? I think it goes back to they've identified a very specific thing that they want to do or a very specific reason for embracing and kind of developing their education through graduate work. And I think when you're looking at graduate work, especially, with different careers that fall under the STEM category, I think being able to show what you can do at that point. So, at that point, you may have some experience and work experience and things that you've done, and the graduate education helps you kind of pinpoint and sort of hone in and refine those skills. So by being able to deliver that and show that on a CLR, I think that's really powerful. I think also when you kind of flip it and you look back at sort of what does that teach institutions, it's that, I think students will go for graduate education because that's what we have available today. That's what they know. But it really gets us to look internally in terms of a lot of these micro-credentials and things that, could be considered, post-bac work that eventually gets the students to where they need to go and help them meet their goals. And I think that those are the conversations that we really need to start having at our institutions, is how do we fill that need for students that they're currently serving by going on to getting a graduate degree beyond their bachelor's. Because I think ultimately that's going to serve the purpose. And I think the CLR fits into that larger conversation.
No, I love it. It makes me want to ask another question that I will not because of time. So you can calm down, Tom. I will just say that while COVID has slowed down some of the CLR development and efforts, I think this conversation that I'm hearing on these benefits really elevates to me the importance of CLR in a time of a pandemic, and really thinking about how can we draw attention to those things that matter, so I can filter some of the noise as a learner for things that are going on and really hone in on that learning and those pieces. And so thank you so much for sharing all those perspectives on benefits. What I will wrap us up with, though, is advice. So as you think about others that might be starting on this path, those that are on it and maybe stalling, what advice would you have for those engaging in CLR development? And Lori, we'll go ahead and start with you.
So I would say the most important piece that we learned was really to have that whole community as part of building it. So that includes your faculty, your students, administration, especially your IT folks will be your best friends because they need to help through this whole journey. Advisors, career services. So start with a large community in building because you're going to need all of those pieces.
It takes a village to get there. I love it. Darren, any advice that you have?
Keep the student front and center the whole time. This is their story. It's their journey. We're here to help them tell it. That's my advice. It's about the student.
Yes, to that. And Sia, advice.
I would just say if you're looking for a starting point, how to jump into this, just, figure out who your students are and what a CLR will mean to them. And I think the rest of it then will fall into place. Because at that point, what you should put on the record, how you should communicate the record, it all sort of comes together when you know that your students can use it in certain ways.
Agreed. And it also sounds like I hear a thread throughout this about clear purpose that you can communicate about why this has value to us as an educational institution and our culture here at our particular institution space. So thank you so much to the panelists for sharing all your insight. Clearly, those that are on this call, these are some great leaders that you can ask other questions to throughout the time. But thank you so much for being a part of this, and I'll turn this back over to Tom.
Thank you, Dr. Jankowski. Thank you, panel. Wonderful work there. Really exciting to hear all of that. And there was great chat going on as well. I think everyone kind of enjoyed engaging in this kind of dual conversation, which is one of the great benefits of Zoom, that you can have this a live conversation face to face, but you can also have this conversation that goes on in the chat. And it's really fun to do that. So we have come to a break. So I want to give everyone the chance to get up and stretch and move around a little bit, or refill that water glass, maybe grab something to nosh on for the next part of this. But I will tell you that we have something now that we're so excited to present. We have also evolved with our technology, and we have some video reflections that we've collected as part of the project from some of our practitioners. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to let Mike Sisson share his, and we're going to be able to see some of these video reflections. And we encourage all our practitioners, if you haven't yet, jump in here and do this. But we'll see everyone back here at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Time, ready to go for our next session. Thank you so much.